PFF's top 32 edge rushers.
Somebody who could or could not have a big say in what the Lions do this season. We'll give you a few seconds.
Yep, and I see somebody definitely is already on it in the chat, man. Mr. Weezy D.
Oh yeah, you cheated, but that's okay. No. Like honestly, the fact that you're looking at PFF list, man after my own heart. But no, it is Za'Darius Smith at 29.
Sign the man.
Za'Darius Smith is at 29.
Free agent Za'Darius Smith?
Free agent Za'Darius
That was
Smith.
previously on the Detroit Lions who need a pass rush potential?
Yes, and somebody who is not currently on the Detroit Lions. And I wanted to read this Reddit because I almost missed it. I was so fixated on Hutch and the top end of the list, but I almost didn't see that Za'Darius Smith finds his way on this list as well. Smith, who turns 33 in September and is currently a free agent, remains one of the NFL's most productive edge defenders. He ranks 7th in pass rush win rate last season at 18.7%. His third consecutive year above 18% after missing all but one game in 2021 due to back surgery. We all know the impact that Za'Darius Smith made. We all were almost certain that this would be the upcoming year where it would be Hutch on one side and Z on the other. But Brad Holmes released him for now. But I'm glad that he's getting his due because I think as more and more time goes that Za'Darius Smith isn't re-signed and isn't signed by anybody, I think people want to discredit him because I think sometimes Lions fans like to do the, if he's here, he's great. If we get rid of him, he's a bum. 18% or more pass rush win rate in the last 3 years, even in his age 30-plus seasons. That's an elite number. Honestly, if we're just talking about past trends, 29's probably a little low. And he could be on this team still. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely. I believe that he would be a good addition to this team. When you're talking about a player that already understands the culture, already understands the city, fits in right away, clearly loves the women from here, and played ball. With a defensive line that was a shell of what we expected to be this season. That, to me, was what I was looking forward to. Was who Za'Darius Smith was going to be when he didn't have to have all the pressure on him. We talk about the usage rate for Cade. Yeah. Za'Darius Smith found himself in a position where he thought, okay, let me just try and help out with the injury to Aiden, and then found himself with a defensive line that got completely depleted. And not just that, but the back line helped. The linebackers wound up seeing their room get depleted. So now it's just kind of Za'Darius Smith and a band of players that we hope can like even Muhammad and those types of guys that we hope can play their way up. But this is where coming into this season and when they first traded for him, we were like, yo, you know what? Not just for this season, but what they're going to do next season. We can't wait. And this was a lot of us saying, you know what? We'll accept this. Because our minds were on the fact that, you know what? We had heard he had knocked on the door of Max Crosby. We had heard the rumblings of where he would want to play if it wasn't for the Raiders. We knew that Hendrickson was becoming available. And that, you know what? We heard the rumors that he was knocking there, among other defensive ends. We had finally gotten to the point that we've been trying to kumbaya with Brad Holmes for years. And that's, can you go get that pass rush help? Can you go get more? And that's where, when you finally got Za'Darius Smith, we all said, you know what? It's not the big name, but it was a name that we had talked about before he got here via our bro KG, who was on the money with it. He said, I think he could come here if that was the case, if you're looking for kind of a under-the-radar type move. And he fit in right away. So that, to me, is what made it shocking, that even for the money they were trying to save, I understand it, and I get it, because they're going to be shelling out a lot of big contracts. But it just, I don't know, it felt like it was the perfect fit. And when you see that he's still productive even at this age, that's where you have to believe that that's probably where the disconnect may be at. Maybe he does have another multi-year contract in him. Maybe he has that from another team, and the Lions are probably in a position where they just can't afford that. But for a Super Bowl window, I'm like, what can't you afford? Well,
and this is where, and I knew that Weezy D313 is the one who has been very consistent that he's not as high on Za'Darius Smith as others. And I have no problem, for the record, I'll just speak to you directly, Weezy. I have no problem with you having a different opinion, for believing in Brad Holmes, for thinking we're a little rough sometimes on the Davenports, the Pascals, and the AQMs of the world. However, this is the type of stuff that I don't like. Let's bring back Brockers, Za'Darius, Charles Harris, and Ashawn to engage either linemen and not get off blocks. My problem with you, Weezy, is you tried a victory lap and you have no leg to stand on. You act like we have no leg to stand on. You act like we like him just because he looks like Rasheed Wallace and Embrace the City. No, it's because in 8 games he had 4 sacks, which was literally second most on the team, even though he only played 8 games. He was by far your second most consistent sack getter. And of course, unfortunately, the first and the second, neither of the games intersected. And you look at those pass rush win rates. You can say that there's caveats behind that. You can say that there's things that you see that maybe others don't, and things that you process that others don't. And I'm okay with that. But you can't victory lap. You can't act like, you Za'Darius Smith people were fools. He was fantastic last year. Every number bears out that he was fantastic last year. You can't argue that.
And honestly, where it brings my mind to is, what is it that we're missing that Brad Holmes is clearly seeing so right? Because we missed it 2 years ago when we went into the trade deadline and said he has to get something done. You got to go and you got to bring in pass rush help. And this is when we still had Aiden Hutchinson. And he said, we have enough guys to get to the playoffs. We have enough to win a game. Trust me, guys. We'll get the division locked up. We'll get. He stood on that podium and stated those things, and it worked out. Even despite the fact that none of us believed that was the case. But obviously, you go another year now. You see that he believes that it was somewhat of a need, especially when you're losing to Aiden Hutchinson. But now that things are back to effectively the off season that he planned for last year, it seems like Brad Holmes is that much more comfortable with what this defensive line is. I believe that he's knocking on wood, thinking that Davenport and Reeder are going to be out there, and that those 2 players are going to cause so much havoc and make that much more of a difference. I think that Brad Holmes is a guy who thinks, I identified these players, I know these players will work, I know these players will mess, I understand who they are, and as long as they're available, we're good to go. That's the only thing from a Brad Holmes type of way that I can come away with, is that he's really believing in what he's already put together, and that it is enough as long as those guys are healthy.
Yeah, and Za'Darius Smith, speaking of which, has been that 2021 season was obviously, he had a hurt for all intents and purposes the whole season, but lately he has been very healthy. Before we get back to Big Z, I want to issue a challenge to Mr. Gromit0237, because he has been ruthless on me in this chat, every single chat. I want to challenge you to something. I like puppies, I like pizza. Are you going to disagree with that somehow because it's me, because you don't like my face? I talk about Riley Green, you hate Green. I talk about Za'Darius Smith, you hate Z. Come on now. I like pizza, I like puppies. Will you find a way to disagree with that? Anywho, I digress. Za'Darius.
Too many carbs, and I like cats.
Yeah, exactly. But
And you just did
I'm lactose intolerant. I can't eat cheese.
with the real time rewind too.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's actually yeah. Chase, that was a great great thing you had in there, because I'm sure that's what I'm going to see
He's
in
a
the
culture
chat.
well, man. Kabasi and Chase.
And like I said, I'm not going to. I will probably feel a little less confident in this team if they don't go after Za'Darius Smith. I'm not saying that I'm out on them. I'm not saying that they can't win the Super Bowl. Especially if you can get them back for cheaper, I think that there's really no harm in it. Just imagine you have Hutch and Za'Darius with things as currently constructed right now, on a cheaper deal, by the way, so that for those people who say he shouldn't have been kept because of the cap hit and the dead cap next year, this doesn't even go into that. This is if they re-sign him. And then you have 3 guys who have shown flashes but all have warts. Marcus Davenport, very, very, I don't want to say injury prone, but in the last 2 seasons he's played 6 of 34 games. Josh Paschal, been inconsistent and missed a lot of games due to injury for every year of his career. AQM was basically for the better part of the last year, basically a year and a half prior to the last half of last year, was on practice squads. Wouldn't you like those guys to be your depth pieces? I would love Marcus Davenport, especially on that contract as like an edge rusher 3, who maybe has to spot start if there's injuries. I would love AQM as like edge rusher 4 or 5 and Paschal. I think if you had Hutch, Z, Davenport, AQM, and Paschal with the last 3 with all of their flaws, to me I might even bump my win total up to 13-4. I'm at 12-5 right now, but I think that can make that big of a difference, and I will definitively pick the Lions to win the Super Bowl. I probably still will, because I am a homer in some ways, and you could definitely argue it, but I think Big Z is He may not be the only missing piece, but I think he is a missing piece that could really put this team over the top.
Hey, you know what? I want to get the chat involved. Tier 2, Randall Smalls. So this all changes when Shepard, that's Detroit Lions defensive coordinator Calvin Shepard, announces that his defense will be blitzing more from the linebackers in the secondary position. And Eric Allen responds, Randall Smalls, I'm surprised when he goes a full show. What? Oh, I thought they were talking about the response to that one. But what Randall Smalls is saying here is something that I'm continuing to be intrigued with. I know what the Detroit Lions defense has generally done, but when they had to go on and create pressure without the use of having Aiden Hutchinson there and really leaning on Za'Darius Smith a lot, they were able to do that from the linebacker position. They were able to do that by bringing down, one of their safeties to be able to kind of refill that space as well in the middle. And that's why I'm hoping or wondering, when you get a Calvin Shepard, despite the fact that I do think a lot of what the Lions have done in the past, they're going to do that some more. I wonder if that wrinkle in the playoffs is something that we see Calvin Shepard, who has largely been the linebackers coach here, but has a keen understanding of all of the positions on defense, and we heard that from his previous coaches, some of them legendary. I do wonder if that's something that he starts to employ. Maybe not every play, but something that you could bring out when you're facing some of those quarterbacks. Think about the start of their season. It's not just, I know people talk about the outdoor games at the start of the season, but it's also the mobility of the quarterbacks that they're going to face. And so if you do have the players and the dogs, if you do have the ability to say, we can stop the run, and if you think that you need to manufacture or get a little bit more pressure home, that's where I'm hoping you got the linebackers and you have your confidence in them to be able to do it. We know Alexander Zaloni is smart enough to. So Randall, I actually kind of feel that. Trust me, man. Especially as a lover of linebackers, man.
Yes. And just a couple of things before I throw it over to a couple of the other guys on the show, the booth boys, for lack of a better term, with all due respect. Za'Darius Smith is a 29. I'll just give a couple of names around him. This is a very interesting one. Montez Sweat on this list, 31. So even when the Bears make what seems like a good move, because obviously we know that his second half of 2023 was great and the Lions had some problems with him, the next year, what does he do? Kind of falls off a cliff. So even when it works, it doesn't. Shout out Ryan Poles. He fell off a cliff last year, by the way. I think 31 is a good spot for him. And at 28, we got Nolan Smith of the Eagles. He had 4 sacks in the playoffs. I can't argue with that. 27, Shop Robinson. I don't know if I'd put him over Z, although he had a good rookie year. Josh Sweat, 25. That's actually pretty low, given how much he was paid. And Abdul Carter at 20. Hasn't played a snap yet. That's interesting to me, although I actually don't mind that ranking because I firmly believe that pretty soon we're going to be calling him Abdul Parsons or Micah Carter because they both went to Penn State. But Justin Satawa, if you've got a second, looks like you're busy, but I just want to get your opinion on Za'Darius Smith. He is 29 on the PFF edge rusher list going into 2025, even though he's currently a free agent. 1, is that a good ranking? 2, how in are you on the Lions potentially getting him? Is that something you would like, dislike? Take it away.
Friend, don't worry. I always got time for you, baby. But yeah, I'd love for them to bring Z back. I think that it just makes a lot of sense. He already has the familiarity. I think that, like you said it perfectly, your edge room has a bunch of warts on it, and you just want to make sure that you have the best pool of players that you can pull from no matter who is in or out of the lineup, and you're confident in whatever one of the 3 is healthy to be that opposite of Hutch. And I think that with Za'Darius Smith in particular, he has everything that you could possibly want as an opposite to Hutch. He has the win rate stats, especially when he's going to be going against no double teams because Hutch is going to be the one demanding those. I think it makes too much sense for him to not bring back, and I truly believe that there is a deal in place. They're just waiting to sign it to later in the offseason. I have no doubt that Za'Darius Smith will be back as a Detroit Lion.
I hope you're right, by the way. Chase, how you feeling about the ranking for Za'Darius Smith, and how in or out on you on the Lions potentially re-signing him on the cheap?
Yeah, I mean, I'd definitely be in on them re-signing him. And the ranking, yeah, I think it's cool. It'd be nice to say that we have 2 guys who are ranked in the top 32. As far as I don't really take the rankings too much to heart personally and stuff like that. But I definitely like the idea of having a veteran in there who is coming into the season healthy with more familiarity with this team and this defense, who can just add some depth to this team and hopefully be a contributor late in the season too. Obviously he's hungry and wants to win, so hopefully it just kind of adds some more fuel to his fire and helps us get the job done.
Ring chasing with the Lions, love to see that. And before you
go
ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I generally don't put too much stock into these rankings beyond just emotional response, but when it's more so like PFF, who you're looking at them more like they look at the game more from an analytical standpoint, that's where it matters at least a little bit more, just a little bit more for me at least, and that's where when you see Big Z on that list, man, when you see Hutch on that list, I'm hoping we have a couple more people, at least one more show up on that list by the end of the season.
Yeah, and for the record, I don't have really any. I'm just glad Big Z is on this list. I'm glad that he's above Montez Sweat, by the way. That's a pretty sweet badge as a Lions fan. But JB Smooth.
My good God.
What's up?
Yeah, Za'Darius Smith at 29. You cool with it? How in or out are you on the Lions potentially re-signing him this offseason on the cheap?
Oh, I think I'm in with it, especially at 29. I think that's fair. I'm definitely in on the Lions bringing him back. Obviously, we just want to see what exactly is going to happen with this offseason, a little bit of free agency that's going on right now. Obviously, some decisions need to be made as well, too. But ultimately, I think you could bring him back. Hopefully, they're looking for a little bit on the cheap. But I think he's a player who wants to be here in Detroit. Obviously, as Kool-Aid said, I mean, he loves the women here and loves Detroit as well, too. But I think the Lions are still kind of waiting out to see some other opportunities that might pop up as a little well, too. Apparently, Von Miller still wants to give it a go for one more year, even though I don't think that's an option for Detroit. But if you want to bring your veteran in, go right ahead. But I'm going to put my chips in Za'Darius Smith.
I'm interested myself to see what kind of a contract Za'Darius Smith will get, whether it's with the Lions or whether it's with another team. Because based off of even recent seasons in his 30s, he deserves to not have to. He doesn't have to, I don't think, necessarily go on the cheap. He could probably get a decent, at least short-term deal with a team, but he hasn't signed anywhere yet, and we also have to account for, and I'm sure GMs are doing it. I don't think it's going to happen, but he is closer to his mid-30s than his early 30s. Eventually, and very soon, most likely, he's going to fall off and not be. He's going to be even further up past his prime. But I think for one more year, he could be exactly what this team needs. And I think most people would agree that on the cheap, I don't think anybody disagrees for the most part that if Za'Darius Smith on a cheaper deal, on one in which he's locked in, no dead cap, no expensive signing bonus, which I wouldn't have minded anyway, but that's beside the point. I think that that's something we could all kumbaya over. A cheap Za'Darius Smith deal in which he is underpaid. Hey, that's how the Lions have won like they do, especially with rookie contracts, because, hell, almost every rookie they've ever had has been severely underpaid at some point.
Yeah, but now what's happening to those guys? They're turning into their most paid players on the team, and that's where you're hoping that these are the things Brad Holmes is able to continue to do. Since Za'Darius Smith is probably one of the more talented players that he's attempting this with. Some of the others, they'll have some injury history, or they are not going to already have, the relationship that Za'Darius Smith already has with the squad. So this one is very interesting. I'm glad that, the last comments that last few comments we got from Brad Holmes about it is that we've been in contact. So we know that means that there has to be a number out there. There has to be something. And they're just allowing Big Z to do what he does. The one thing we know is this. The Lions organization has left a good impression with Za'Darius Smith. He's talked openly, very, very glowingly about the Detroit Lions. And I'm hoping that in the end, this thing is just what they do for the old heads. Man, hey, look, bro, just get right. Bro, we'll see you in about a month and a half or a month.
Hey, there's a couple of super chats that allude to that, but we'll have JB Smooth read those on the other side of the break. But coming up, we're gonna TLB a little bit more. Mike Florio and Chris Sims had some comments about the Detroit Lions. I thought it was very interesting, and I also thought it was a good conversation